everybody, it is Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Welcome back to another video over here on That's Comical, and this time another stats, trends, and picks video for May 2022. And if you happen to be watching and it's Wednesday, happy new comic book day. Well, personally, what can I say? May has been a month. Definitely for me and my family, because along with the fact that we did have the joyous occasion that was Free Comic Book Day, I also witnessed the birth of my daughter. So comic books, even though I haven't been talking about them much over here on the channel, clearly if you've been watching, there's been a lack of videos from pretty much everybody, but don't worry about it, there's going to be some more videos on the way. Everybody was sort of kind of waiting for me to regroup, me to get used to everything, and yet I still managed to do all of my designated reading for the month of May, including all of the free comic books that I was able to get. In regards to May as a whole, it was definitely an interesting reading month in terms of statistics, but there definitely was one word that could sum up the month of May 2022. It was a lot of fun. We are seeing some amazing stories unfolding, like the brand new crossover between Hulk and Thor, Banner of War by Donny Cates, which is absolutely awesome. We saw the Daniel Warren Johnson Jurassic League #1, which I personally thought was a hilarious read, and of course we've got Mark Waid's World's Finest, Batman Superman, as well as some really big surprises in regards to the indie circuit. But let's take a look at the statistics, of course, and once again, this is a big surprise, and it's only seeming that we're going to be seeing this based on what I'm seeing in the forecast for June. DC is once again in the lead for a second month in a row. There was 14 of my comics purchased from DC. Right behind it was Image, and I'm also really surprised that the conglomerate of the indie titles took such a deep dive. I'm wondering if that's just because of the fact that a lot of the titles have been pushed back, or just because of the fact that there's really nothing grabbing my interest, but fear not, there's definitely some interesting indie titles that are coming out, and they're definitely going to be talked about today because some of them are on my top pick predictions for June. So when we take a look at the percentage, once again, over 30% of my purchases in May was my DC purchases. And that also includes the free comics, by the way. The free comic book day also saw a decent amount of DC, and believe it or not, Marvel as well. Because when we take a look at the line graph, you know, we take a look at when I started making these videos, and we all can remember that Marvel was the largest amount of comics that I was buying, but that's also because of the fact that I was really invested in the X run that Jonathan Hickman was headlining, and we all know how that turned out. And at this point in time, the only X title that I am reading at the moment is Sabretooth, and that title has been pushed back a couple of times, so I'm still waiting for issue #4. But in regards to anything Marvel, I'm not seeing as many titles as I am in regards to DC. I mean, I am enjoying the new runs of Venom and Carnage, of course, Hulk and Thor, both by Donny Cates, and a couple of the mini-series like Silver Surfer Rebirth, which unfortunately got pushed back for its final issue. But I think one of the biggest surprises for me is definitely Peter David. Besides Maestro, he's got some new mini-series projects in the works, as well as the brand new Zeb Wells Spider-Man run, which is definitely intriguing. But we're going to get into a couple of thoughts from my perspective in regards to June in just a little bit. So let's take a look at how I fared in the month of May. So my overall purchasing and reading of May was pretty much in the realm where I thought it was going to go, but there definitely were some very big surprises. I only ended up predicting correctly once, but in a very, very good way. So let's take a look at where we stood starting in the first week of May 2022, and I was going to give it to Peter David's third installment of his 5-part miniseries Maestro World War M, which of course, as I've said before, is the final installment of his Maestro trilogy. This, don't get me wrong, was a great issue. I had so much fun. That's one of the few things that I'm saying about Peter David. He's a name that I have known for many, many years, and I just have so much fun when it comes to him writing a lot of the titles that he's doing at the moment. I'm really excited for this coming month of June because he's going to be doing a new Fantastic Four 5-issue miniseries, so I'm really looking forward to that. Once again, I'm anticipating a fun time, and Peter David just knows how to write a great story, and he gets these characters so well. But as great as this one is, the comic that made it out with the top pick was one that I had been noticing, but I was very much on the fence with when it came to actually picking it up. So I actually went to the 0 Hour, and after I watched a bunch of reviews, including some of my personal favorites like Comics Elite, they said to me that you had to check out Skottie Young's Twig #1 from Image Comics. Now, Skottie Young, I know a lot more from an artist perspective. He draws very Calvin and Hobbes-like characters, which I personally adore, but the guys over at Comics Elite in particular was saying that Twig felt like you turned that first page and you just walked right into Fraggle Rock. And he was not wrong. Feels like something that Jim Henson would have done if he was still alive. And me, I'm a diehard Jim Henson fan. Sesame Street, The Muppets, Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, these are things that I absolutely adore. And it's just pure fantasy and fun. So when I read Twig #1, that's exactly what I got. Pure fantasy and fun with a great sense of humor. It's very interesting because it's Kyle Strahm that's actually doing the artwork for this 5-issue miniseries and not Skottie Young. So for me to get a first look at Skottie Young from a writing perspective, for me, this was a real treat. And I am very excited to see how this story unfolds. It's simple, it's adorable, it's got a great sense of humor, and some of the most amazing, captivating images that you will see in a comic book right now. Check it out. Then, of course, we had Free Comic Book Day. I actually thought that that was when my daughter was going to be born, but it turned out that she ended up being 3 days late, and my wife actually said to me, as long as you just go to your local comic book shop and don't go to a whole bunch of others, feel free to take advantage. And I managed to get my hands on 8 free Comic Book Day books. I was only allowed 5 on the day of, but there were extras on the next Wednesday, and the guy who runs my store, who is awesome, just said to me, go take 3 more. So let's just say that I didn't have a particular favorite, although I will definitely say the one I'm really glad I picked up was Jeff Lemire's The Bone Orchard Prelude. I am really intrigued by that, and I'm definitely looking forward to possibly getting my hands on those hardcover books as they come out. But what this Free Comic Book Day pretty much did was prepare me for what is coming in the summer, because DC and Marvel are going to be giving us 2 big stories. We've got the newest installment of Crisis, and of course everybody knows when it comes to DC, when the word crisis comes up in conversation, something big is about to go down. And Joshua Williamson, who is definitely one of the best writers at DC right now, is headlining the Dark Crisis saga. And then we've got Kieran Gillen, who is someone that a lot of people like, some people don't like. I haven't read enough of his work to appreciate it, but I was not interested in this brand new crossover that was coming. It was Avengers, X-Men, Eternals, and it's called Judgment Day, but the more people started thinking about ideas of where it was going to go, and more importantly, where Spider-Man is fitting into all of this, I just wanted to say, you know something? Let me just give it a shot, you know? Kieran Gillen, I'm excited to read a little bit more of his work, and I have a feeling I'm not going to hate this story. I'm hoping that I like it, because I was very disappointed with where the X-Men fell in regards to my reading in recent years, and I have not really been reading Jason Aaron's Avengers either. And the Eternals, besides the movie, I don't really read much about it. So my big question is going to be, which of these 2 big crossovers is going to be the most favored? If I was a betting man, I would give it to Dark Crisis, simply because of the fact that it's Joshua Williamson. But we'll see what happens. Then we moved on to the second week of May, and I knew it was going to go to Jurassic League #1 from DC Comics, written by Daniel Warren Johnson, just because it is Jurassic League. It's the DC superheroes as dinosaurs. This is just flat out fun. And as I also hear from some of the other people in the comic book community, a comic book that you can actually sit your little kids down with and read and look at the real fun pictures, and who doesn't want to see Batman as a T-Rex and the Joker as a Velociraptor? Seriously. I just put this book down when I finished reading it, and I stood up in my chair and I clapped. I was like, this is what reading comic books is all about. And I'm really excited to read the remaining 5 issues of this story. So then we got into the third week of May, and I thought I was going to go back to DC and give them another top pick with Batman Superman World's Finest #3. This is a Mark Waid story that I am just loving, and once again, this is a great issue. Don't get me wrong. This story is just flat out awesome. It is everything you want from Batman and Superman, especially if you're not digging what's going on with them right now. Though I will say, Joshua Williamson's work on Shadow War at the moment, and Philip Kennedy Johnson's work on Action Comics, oh man. The Action Comics Superman story is incredibly good. You've got to check it out. But surprisingly, I ended up giving the top pick to King Spawn over at Image Comics. Now, I have been heavily invested in the Spawn storyline since issue number 300, and I have been a big fan of Spawn ever since the 1990s when it first hit the store shelves. But now that we've got this Spawn universe and they keep talking about the dead zones in the background, I'm just dying to see what's gonna happen in this story, because in the King Spawn storyline in particular, Spawn has been given a choice, and they're basically saying the choice that we know you want is going to be the end of the world, and it's apparently something that both heaven and hell really want, and it just got me really excited to see what's coming next and how this second story arc is going to conclude. Now, I also am reading the regular Spawn issues. I'm also reading the Scorched, which is a lot of fun, but I did put Gunslinger Spawn away. I'm not reading it at the moment. I loved the first story arc, and it is ironically the only Spawn comic that Todd McFarlane is actually writing right now. He's not even writing the original Spawn title at the moment, and he and Brett Booth are just doing a phenomenal job. But that seemed to be the one story that was like steering a little bit further away from the core story that I'm personally interested in, but I have a feeling that Gunslinger Spawn is going to return to that storyline, and that is when I will get back into that book again. But King Spawn number 10, great issue. Cannot wait to see what happens in issue number 11. And then finally, in the last week of May, I was really excited because we were going to be getting the return of one of my favorite reads right now, and that is from Image Comics, James Tynion IV. The Department of Truth was coming back with the 4th story arc with issue 18, and at the same time, another Image comic made its return with its 3rd and final story arc, and that, of course, is Stillwater from Chip Zdarsky. These are two of my favorite comic books right now, and I was so glad to see them come back, just because of how much I loved the Department of Truth issue 17, but it didn't end up being my top pick, even though both the Department of Truth and Stillwater were two of my favorite reads of the last week of May. I ended up giving it to the 3rd part of the Banner of War crossover between Hulk and Thor from Donny Cates, Hulk issue number 7. Now, I didn't read the Immortal Hulk run from Al Ewing, though a lot of people loved it to a great degree, but when I knew that Donny Cates was going to be taking over the Hulk, I was just anticipating a ton of fun, because I'm reading a lot of Donny Cates. I'm enjoying crossover a great deal. I read his Venom run. I also read his Baby Teeth book, and he just knows how to give the readers something that's fast-paced, filled with action, and it's in your face, no mercy, sir. And Hulk number 7 was awesome. I just had a ton of fun. It was Thor versus Hulk versus Iron Man in a brand new Celestial Hulkbuster outfit. Holy cow! Non-stop action, but that ending. Oh my god, that ending. It will definitely leave you saying, why did you have to stop this now? And I am so excited for Banner of War Part 4, which is going to be in the next issue of Thor. So that is what happened in May 2022. So what are going to be my predictions for June of 2022? Well, it's definitely going to be an exciting month because it's 5 new comic book days, so that's always exciting. And also, even though I had seen a decline over the last couple of months, as you had seen in the numbers before, we went down to 44 comics in May. That's a big low, and that's actually including the free comic book day books, but we're actually going back into the 50s, and that's just due to the fact that there were a lot of pushbacks, a lot of rescheduled titles, and that is why there's just so much coming out in the month of June, but also because it's a 5-week new comic book month, which is exciting as always. So what are my predictions? Well, that there's going to be a lot of fun to be had in the month of June, so I am really looking forward to it. When we go into the first week of June, there are some very exciting things. We've got the Road to Dark Crisis, we've got the 4th installment of Jeff Lemire's Little Monsters. Even though I haven't been talking about that one, that's a great book. You gotta check out Little Monsters. We've also got the last issue of Step by Bloody Step, and we've got a new James Tynion 3-issue story starting with The Closet, which I'm excited over at Image Comics. But I'm giving my top pick to Aftershock Comics, and it's been a very long time since I've given Aftershock a top spot pick, and it's a new story called Astronaut Down. It's a story about a guy who's always wanted to travel through space, though he is finally called up to do so, but he's not going to be traveling through space as an astronaut. He is traveling through various dimensions to try and prevent the downfall of mankind. Very excited to see where this story is going to go, and I'm really hoping that it's good. When we take a look at the second week of June, again, a lot of exciting stuff to look forward to. Dark Crisis is beginning over at DC, along with Flashpoint Beyond issue number 2 from Jeff Johns over at DC. We've also got the 4th part of Banner of War, which is in Thor issue number 26, of course, from Donny Cates. And another interesting title that I'm looking forward to is the Black Label book from DC, Aquaman Andromeda, which is being written by Ram V. And it's more about Ram V for me, but also because of Aquaman, because I have actually been reading a lot of Aquaman lately. I spoke about Peter David earlier in the video. I actually started reading his classic Aquaman run, and I'm going to start reading a little bit of Jeff Johns' Aquaman run. So seeing that Aquaman Andromeda, one of 3 issues, is coming out in June, very exciting. But I am giving the top pick to Twig issue number 2 from Image Comics, just because I had such a great time with issue number 1. When we take a look at the 3rd week in June, we've got Boom Studios giving us Alice Ever After issue number 3, another book that I'm really having a good time with. Peter David's start of his 5-part miniseries, The New Fantastic Four, very exciting. King Spawn 11, coming out that week. But I'm very excited for another Aftershock title, and that is the Aftershock title called A Calculated Man by Paul Tobin. The story itself, they said, it is Goodfellas meets A Beautiful Mind. It's the story of a numbers guy who pretty much backstabs the mob. He has all their secrets, and he also knows how to stop them. So he's basically on the run, and he's using his brain to stop the mob that hired him once and now is out to kill him. I don't know how you could say no to a title like this. I'm really hoping that it is good. And when we take a look at the 4th week in June, lots of great stuff is coming out. We've got Maestro World War M, issue number 4 over at Marvel, as well as the final issue of Silver Surfer Rebirth, the 14th issue of Stillwater. We've also got the conclusion to Kurt Busiek's Aerosmith Behind Enemy Lines with issue number 6 at Image. We've also got Batman the Night 6, Batman Superman World's Finest issue number 4, so many books to choose from. Also, the return of the Silver Coin over at Image Comics. But I am going to be going with the return of a title that I'm so glad that I was recommended to read back in 2020. And that, of course, is We Only Find Them When They're Dead, issue number 11, over at Boom Studios from Al Ewing. The final story arc to this title is about to begin. It's going to take place further forward in time, just like the second arc did, and I am just very curious to see where this story is going to go, and more importantly, how it's going to end, tying everything up together. And with the final week of June 2022, I have a small batch of books coming out, and I am just going to give it to the Department of Truth issue number 19 over at Image Comics, just because of the fact that I have been loving this book, and every single time I think it's going to end up being in my top spot. If it doesn't make it, it comes pretty darn close, just like it did in May of 2022. So, the Department of Truth, issue number 19, I'm loving where the story is going to go. We're seeing the uncovering of the Ministry of Lies, and Cole is now officially at a crossroads. Is he going to continue on with the Department of Truth to find what's been bothering him all these years and take down the Ministry of Lies, or is there going to be another group that recruits him to do their dirty work. We will find out. So that is my stats, trends, and picks of May 2022. I'm really hoping you all enjoyed. Leave a comment in the box below and let me know what your favorite read of the month was. And I'm really excited to see if I'm going to be correct with all my picks in June of 2022. But in the meantime, everybody, I will see you in the next one.